Okay, next up is my very good friend Alice. Now Alice, she's one of those people that you know, those who've met her have been very, very much influenced by her. Um, Alice has done a TEDx talk um, on, I think it was a self-directed learning. Alice, she's been in the newspaper. She's been on, was it a BBC news item? Um, and but she's been out there. She's had quite a high profile on some of these things. And Alice has this website, organic slash not slash hyphen education.co.uk. And she's currently also involved with me and a couple of others on the Streams website, and has four boys. And I'm going to let me spotlight you, Alice. Thank you for joining us this morning. Her passion is all around self-directed education, and um, that's quite an adventure that you've been on personally. So I'm going to just hand over to you then, Alice.
Yeah, thanks, Juliet. What a lovely lot of names and faces I can see here. This is a great thing.
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah,
for inviting me. Juliet's given me a glowing introduction there. Thanks, Juliet. Um, what can I tell you? Well, let me talk a little bit first about maybe why we chose to home educate.
yep,
That's a good starting
yep.
point. So when my oldest boys were quite small, we spent some time living in Turkey, and I think that was quite significant in that it was this big family adventure, and we lived in a different culture, a different part of the world. And it meant that when we came back, I think we were sort of seeing things a little bit differently, having been away. And yeah, I noticed my son when my eldest son then went into year two, which was a SATS year then, and had quite a good year in a way actually, because the teacher was amazing and it was quite challenging for him to come back in and have to sort of catch up because in Turkey they don't start formal schooling until 7, which I think is very sensible. And so he had had this amazing cross-cultural adventure in another place, immersed in another language, playing lots of chess, which interestingly they learn in Turkey from nursery, but not really doing much kind of reading and writing. So he had quite a steep learning curve that first year in a British primary school. And it was around the beginning of year 3, he'd done 4 terms in that school when um, I began to be really quite concerned about him. Something in his demeanor changed. His head dropped. He just stopped asking all the questions that he was always full of. His curiosity seemed to diminish. He became quite anxious. There were some behaviours around that which were concerning me. And he lost his sparkle, really. It was like the lights went out, the lights of just curiosity and joie de vivre. And I just thought this isn't right. Something's not good here. He's not thriving. Um, so that was the push really to me to take the boys out of school. I sort of thought about, would it make a difference to change his school? But it was the system that I realized was not enabling my boy to flourish. And actually, the way that he learns, the primary way he learns is through asking questions and discussion and talking to people, which, of course, in a busy class of 30 was continually being shut down because he was being told to be quiet, sit down, be quiet, not now. Um, and he was shutting down. He was sitting down and being quiet, and something wasn't it just wasn't a good environment for him to flourish and learn to his full potential. So yeah, that was the push I needed really to take the boys out of school and start off on our journey into organic education. But really, if it actually went back into my own childhood because even as a child, I dreamed of a different way of being and learning. And I used to refuse to go to school. And my mum was a nursery educator, with a very strong kind of play-based philosophy. And sometimes when I wouldn't go to school, I'd go to nursery or to work with my mum. And I'd ask her, she remembers me asking her, aged about 9, Mum, why isn't school more like this? Um, so I think even back then I was imagining something different way of growing up, um, and enabling that playfulness to continue as children grow older. And I used to read books that were actually about unschooling, really. For example, my favorite book of all time still is Gerald Durrell's My Family and Other Animals. I've
Mm,
always loved that book, but
yeah.
really, he was unschooled essentially in Corfu. And I still love going back to that book if I'm feeling a bit low. Um, so yeah, I think that yeah, the decision was very much shaped by me and my background as well and my dreaming. Yeah.
Um,
So
and you know, you've that experience. I mean, led you. You went on a journey of self-discovery yourself with your children, didn't you? I mean, um, like most home educating parents, you kind of don't 100% know what you're doing in the beginning, and you have to figure it out.
you do.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a great adventure. I think that yeah, it there was a lot of learning in those first years. And particularly my eldest son and I had to kind of thrash out a way of working and being together, which really involved me learning to relinquish control and get out of the way, really, and appreciate what my children were doing, what they were interested in, and then getting alongside to support and facilitate and champion that. Um, and that really for me was the greatest lesson of those early years of home education. I think often um, my son would have brilliant ideas and projects on the go. And sometimes in the morning, I would say, oh, oh, today we can do this, this, this. And I had my own kind of nice agenda, what I thought we could do. And then he would present, oh, actually, Mum, no, this is what I want to do today. And it would be totally different.
I think he
Um,
takes after you, Alice.
Maybe he does, yeah. Maybe he's a chip off the old block, but
I
he,
think
yeah,
so.
he would have his own agenda. And sometimes in the early days, I mean, I would fight him, because I had this idea of no, we need to be doing this and we need to make you kind of are too influenced, I think, by fear and by your own schooling, actually, and you're thinking about
Yeah,
how it needs to look, how it should look.
yeah,
Um, and it was that process of having to, yeah, unschool that in myself, let
yeah.
go of that.
So because we don't have loads of time before we're going to be joined by our next guest, I want to fast forward
Yes,
to you recently completed your master's in childhood in society at the University of Warwick.
I did.
What kinds of ideas, behaviors, and outcomes were you interested in researching? And just tell me a little bit more about that study.
About the start, yeah, that was yeah, a really interesting opportunity for me as part of my master's to do a research project in, and I was really interested in hearing from children who'd never been to school, centering their voices and understanding more of their own perceptions of their learning, their own narratives of learning, if you like. So I set out to do that, and it was so much fun. I loved talking to the children. They were brilliant. And we used photographs. So they took photographs of their learning and then spoke to me about them, really. Um, and it was wonderful. The learning that these children shared with me was so rich, so full of challenge, so creative. And I found through that research that both the process and the context of the learning were significant. So the process that the children were engaged in was interest led, right? So it was led by their own interest and curiosity. It was always challenging. They set themselves challenges, hard challenges, and persevered, and accepted that sometimes it wouldn't work the first time and they'd have to try again. And they would persevere through difficulty with that kind of growth mindset. Um, the learning was very practical and very contextual. So there was lots of skills being built around what they were doing at home, cooking and looking after their environment. And the learning was very contextual. So it was rooted in their experience. Um, and the context in which they were learning was important. Families were really creating environments that supported
Yeah,
learning. And these children are immersed in relationships which support that, and which were really important and encouraging. The families were committed to lifestyles of learning. So the children were really making use of all the resources that were available to them, including technology in really wonderful and creative ways. Yeah, it was brilliant, brilliant study. And it really, yeah, brought home to me and again reminded me just what amazing and capable learners children are.
exactly. And your um certainly my observation and knowledge of your children is that you're seeing the fruit of that now. And I know it's not always easy with strong-willed children with personalities and ideas of their own, but you've done an amazing job, and they're well equipped for the real world that they were already part of. Um, anyway, we're going to invite. Let me just share this next slide. I'm going to take you, Alice. I just want to say thanks for joining us, but I hope you're sticking around to join with the streams team in 15 minutes. Yeah,
Yeah, I can
so
do
you
that.
will
Yeah.
see